time to do a workshop on safety for congregations. And my thoughts went to Horizon. I'm a member of the safety committee here. And Marte Keller, who's our chair of our safety committee, has done a wonderful job for the last couple of years, has put together a lot of things. We have out of our welcome desk a little Bible with all the procedures and everything. So I got to thinking about all the things that we've done here. And we're not experts. We've done a lot of research. We've done a lot of things. But we meet monthly, and we talk about the safety of our church. And so what we wanted to do was share with you what we're doing. So here's what we're going to do. Marty's going to talk a little bit in a minute here about developing a plan. The idea is risk management, but we're simplifying it. And we're going to have two sessions that are going to go concurrently. I listed 1 and 2, and name tags are A and B. So if you're an A, that's the same as 1, you're going to be staying here with Marte, and she's going to talk about medical issues and human-caused threats. Hopefully, none of those will be situations that we incur, but things we want to talk about. I'm going to be doing a session over in the library, communications, which are primarily talking a little bit about walkie-talkie radios and the differences. A lot of difficult information out on the internet on that. I want to talk about weather and how we get alerts. And we've got a fire siren across the street, but there are other ways to get alerts and ways to monitor all this. And we'll talk a little bit about fire, what we're doing at Horizon and our plans here. When we're done with both sessions, we're going to come back in here then and just have some final thoughts or some ideas. We do have we have several presentations we put on PowerPoints. At the end of the presentations, we've got a list, 3-page list of resources from the UUA, from insurance companies, from FEMA, and from the Department of Homeland Security on securing churches. So we'll share that with you. So Marte?
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many people, and from what Dennis is saying, the interest level, because of all the things that have happened, has really risen. As far as why you make a plan, it's that number one, you can sell it, but also what happens with a plan is that you hit the 5 areas of emergency management, really. You have prevention, protection, you do have mitigation, you have response, and you have recovery. And when you build a plan, you got to look at all those areas. You're not, how do I respond to an active shooter? How do I respond to whatever? You're looking at the whole range. You want to prevent it, obviously, but then you also you've got to think about recovery. What's going to happen afterwards in place? Because I don't know if you all have a settled minister, but even if you do, they're not here all the time. And so you've got to have kind of a guidelines, what I call a roadmap. I'll have that later. The other thing is when you have a plan, it helps with your training because you teach to that plan. And so you're able to follow through and be consistent with your training. And when you have drills or you practice, you're going to see if your plan works because it's a validation of what you put in there. And if you're like everybody else, you change it. You keep changing, keep modifying. It's really not just a one and done. It's going to point out areas that you need to fix. One of the things that just happened last Sunday, we did a training with our greeters and ushers, and we talked about some of the smaller teams that we have. And these were all people that are longtime members, and the people on the teams are longtime members. And this is the 3rd time I've presented this. And they said, could we have pictures of them? So we're going to put pictures on a laminated sheet and keep it at our welcome desk, which is kind of our control center. And the other thing I think a plan does is it's reassuring to congregants, to visitors, to staff, that we're doing all we can to help this be a safer congregation. And that's really an important part of it. Okay, the roadmap thing. And along the way, you're going to change things. I probably have 10 versions of the plan still on my hard drive. Getting started, again, buy-in. You've got to have somebody who's saying, yeah, this is a good idea, let's keep doing it. Get the team together. Are you going to be just a safety team, or are you emergency related, emergency preparedness? And we are the emergency preparedness. If they come up about some areas in the playground that needed repair, and it's like, hey, not under our purview. We don't want to have to, we're not just safety. But it may be different in your church. You may want to take all of it. For us, what has worked is just to focus on that. We wrote a goal for Horizon, and this is basically what we said we wanted to do. Protect against coordinated capabilities to respond to, recover from any threat. The balance risk with resources in need. Sometimes we would like a really fancy camera system, but that's not cheap. It's really expensive. So, you look at other ways to do it. Some people, want to have hired guards, police, whatever, and sometimes you can't afford it, and sometimes that's not your culture either. So, this was the goal. That's in the front of our plan. If you're going to start, I would suggest that you focus on what your biggest need is right now and do one area at a time. Make the procedures, whatever you're going to write, be simple and clear. Part of the problem in some of the plans is to just drill down into the details. It's like, that's not, you can't teach that. You've got to teach to the minimum and be very basic for it to be logical and common sense. Because I don't know about you, but a lot of our greeters work one day, one Sunday a month, or sometimes it's once every 3 months. So if you have a complicated procedure, that's not going to work. And build on the resources that you actually have in place right now. And when I talk about medical events, I'll go into that. We looked at what people in our congregation have medical background. We got a lot of resources. We come from many different areas, so I would do that. And the next two, the decision-making authority, that's really important. It's really important to your board and to the minister to. And that is that you're very clear about what the order is, who makes the final decision. And it may vary from event to event. Now, if we have a medical event here, the minister doesn't have a whole lot to say about that. That's kind of common. But if we're talking about a human caused threat, yeah, they're going to want to have some say into that. Not initially, but eventually. So think about really clear lines of authority. The other is the lines of communication, because that's half of your response is what are you going to do? And a lot of it is you've got all these other people you've got to take into account. So you want to make sure that the greeters and ushers know, who do they go to? Because we don't want people just kind of, getting really anxious or upset and over-responding to something, I would say, or giving bad directions. So your lines of communication. And the final thing is a really good plan is flexible, because every situation does not come in a little box, and it always happens that way. You'll present a scenario in a training or whatever, and it's, what's really going to happen if it happens, it's going to be something different. It's so be flexible. One of the hardest parts is thinking that all must be done right now. And it's overwhelming, and you end up not really going anywhere. Because I've got to work on fire, and then we've got these human cause threats, then we've got a disruptive person, and what if somebody has a heart attack? It's like, take one at a time, work on them one at a time. Thinking that you're done when you're done. It's kind of like raising children. You're never done. It just goes on and on. Getting word out is a little bit harder than I had thought. And so what we've kind of settled on is doing more small groups. And we're going to work with groups to get the word out more than just, there's some safety group there. And you'll be surprised at how many people really don't know exactly what you're doing. I had a comment from one of the board members. I thought you were just a little group of people kind of that got together. I said, you're not, are you? No, we're not. No, we're not. Training. Again, it's hard to get people together to train, and I did usher greeter one Sunday. We're doing one this Sunday. I know I'm going to have to do another one. And we don't have that many ushers and greeters, but we can't, they have lives outside of church. Funny thing. It's also hard to get into we've got to practice this now. We've got to have a drill, or we've got to have an exercise, depending on what you're doing. So that's how you're going to validate your plan. You put it into practice. And it's hard then to realize that you not only have to revisit, you should then modify your written plan so that the current directions are there. Rather than say, okay, well, that was written in 2021, and but we don't do it that way anymore. Here's what we do. Put it in writing, so anybody, you can pick it up, and there it is. Right there, the medical, weather, fire, and human cause threats. I got that list because I looked at a lot of plans, and back in 2019, there was an amazing amount of stuff out there. There's not so much detailed stuff out there now. UUA and the resources that Dennis put together are very good, but the old plans, they just posted every plan, everything. And it's like they don't do that anymore. But Director of Public Safety for Carrollton, which is the city that Horizon is in, listed those for me when I met with him. He said, these are the 4 most likely things that are going to happen. Actually, he said human cause threats are not as likely, but the other ones, you have a high chance of having. So it was a good place to start having communications with them. They have been very helpful to us in where we shelter, in how we deal with fires, and dealing with human cause threats. They've been a big, big help. And so there's a relationship now between us and them. And that's good to know, because there will be times when you will need to call 911. And you kind of want them to know, they're reasonable people. These are not just people flying off the wall. Our plan itself has 4 sections. We have, in the basic plan, talks about what we hope to achieve, the areas that we're going to cover, our lines of authority and decision making, and our areas of communication. Right there in the red book, I'll let you look at it, just don't walk off. It's our current plan. Then we have the functional dependencies, and that talks about, it's broken down in things in terms of if you have to evacuate, if you have to shelter, if you have to lock down. Those can be applied to several different situations. Like evacuation if you had a gas leak or a water break or something like that. It's still the same sort of procedure. Third section goes into threat-specific issues, fire, medical, those sort of things. And then the back is resources. There has to be some place where you gather the lists of people who will do this. Who do you call for this? Where is that located? That's how our plan is organized. Again, our plan is for Horizon. It's not a blueprint. It's not a script. It's guidelines. You've got to take it and make it appropriate for you and your congregation. And finally, I would say, don't just let your plan sit on the shelf. You do all this work and it's like, okay, we've got it done. Use it to train your safety team, to do the drills. It's a process. It's not a static document. And the other thing that is really kind of coming home to us is how long change takes with people.